be the change. Every fortnight I have a little bit of a review, reflection on what has happened around me, and look for that topic that might be relevant, because if it's happening with me, it's probably happening with you, and it's probably happening with others. So it's like, okay, so what's been the theme? What have I needed to learn? And initially I had circumstances where I was like, oh yeah, that situation happened with that person, and I had to really adjust how I dealt with that, and I wonder what topic I could call that, and we've done so many topics. I'm like, oh yeah, I could make it about that one individual, but that seems rude, like, because it's about them, but it's not, it's actually about me. And I went, oh, rightio. And then I have this little rock garden. It's not little. I have a rock garden outside my room here, and I have different little messages. And so I took a photo of one of the rocks, which is the image I used on Facebook yesterday. It says, be the change. And I went, maybe that's the topic. Now we can just make it mean whatever we need to make it mean. So it was a little bit of, I'd come across these circumstances, and I will explain one of them because it's my daughter, and I always love explaining, telling stories about my daughter. She has given me full permission. She always does. It's just, she goes, sure, Mum, you use me, whatever.
Embarrass me. Go for it.
Go for it, Mum, whatever you do. So as most people listen to this, and I know, my daughter moved out nearly 12 months ago, not quite, but nearly. And so she has her own life, and she's very busy, as we all are. And we did have this arrangement where she would come over regularly, but then that kind of fizzled out because of all sorts of reasons. But I have implemented as an ongoing thing that she and I go to theatre productions, and we have some shopping days, so that I built in some quality one-on-one time with her over a period of time, so that, once a month I get to spend a good chunk of time with her doing an activity. So that's great. However, we were in this sort of period of time where she hadn't come to visit for a while. I've just put together my new room, and I really wanted to show it off to her. Now, there's a bit of complexity there, because the room that I've now renovated was her bedroom.
Oh.
And I've now turned it into my study. And yet the person that I really wanted to have really excited about this room was her.
So this isn't be the change. This is she the change.
So I put a bit of pressure on her. I was like, I really want you to come over and see the room and see what I've done. And I even wanted her contribution on things, like wanted to try and engage her. And I had all this right intention of wanting to include her, so she felt still involved in my world and all of those sorts of things. And also over that period of time, she had a birthday. And it's the first time that I haven't been involved really with her birthday. We went and had a lunch with her and her boyfriend, and that was fine. That was mum, dad, her and the boyfriend. Great. But nothing else. So on her actual birthday, sure, I sent her a message right on the hour and time that she was born, but that was sort of it. And so when she came over to see my room, I was really interested in how her party had gone, and I tried to engage her, and she wouldn't engage. And it didn't matter what I was doing, she wouldn't engage. And so probably typical mother syndrome. For the next 4 days after that short visit, it was doing my head in. I was like,
what did I do? What did I do wrong?
What did I do wrong? She's now not wanting to be in my world. I can't get her to like the stuff that I'm liking. Oh, the chatter. And at night, oh, dangerous. Weighted blanket came out, all that sort of stuff kicked in. And but it's interesting because I compartmentalized that. Like, I still had amazing things happening with work and all sorts of other things, but this when it comes to, well, my daughter, it's a thing, and it kind of it really it brings out all my doubts, my self-doubts, when I don't get a confirmation from her. Anyway, so conveniently, I then had an outing with her. We had a theatre production to go to. So we went along to that. But before we went, I was talking to Renz, my husband, about that, about like how I was feeling with her. And he said, just tell her. And I realized what he was doing in that when he told me to just tell her how I was feeling, because that was the very thing I wanted her to do to me. Mm-hmm. I wanted her to tell me. I didn't mind if she told me that she wasn't as excited about the room because it felt really weird, because it was her bedroom and now it's her study. I didn't mind what that was going to be, but I wanted her to engage. Anyway, but the actual problem was that I wasn't engaging. And so we went out, we drove to the theatre, we were sitting down having a little bit of a snack before we went inside, and I opened up to her and I said, look, I really appreciate you've got a lot going on and you're a busy world, but I'm just going to tell you how I'm feeling, and that maybe you could understand that this hurts me when you have a birthday and I ask you about it and you don't tell me anything. And she was like, oh, Mum, I thought I told you all about it. And she started to just tell me everything about her party and just the normal interaction. So when it came to picking the topic, I was like, isn't it? So I sort of got through the other side of that, and I'd realized that only when I was willing to step in and engage with her, rather than just asking her to engage with me, then I got the engagement that I was looking for. Then I got her opening up to me because I'd opened up to her.
It's interesting. We probably could have named this something else, maybe, because what's coming to mind for me with this is like it's all about me. Like it's not about her. It's not about her. Yes, the story involves her, but it's your reaction to what you're not getting or wanting or needing,
which is expectation, right? Yeah.
Which is the whole story, right? So you being the change in that case, it's almost like walking up to somebody and saying, hug me, hug me, hug me. Like it doesn't work like this. You have to stick your arms out for that to take place, right? And if you remain closed off, you're not really that huggable, right? So you actually, and Ren's telling you, just tell her, like maybe not the most subtle way to approach that, but it's accurate, right? Like show up, invite, ask, tell her what you need, right? Open up.
Open up. Yeah.
It gives the opportunity for that to be reciprocated, or at least understood, right? Until she's ready for it.
Yes. And so when I was able to be the change that I wanted, then the movement happened, the flow happened. And I did have another circumstance with that was a little bit trickier. And I was finding that I was being blamed for something. So it was almost a reverse. Someone was wanting something specific from me, and I was at fault. I wasn't actually at fault, but their perception was that I was at fault. And I was like, wow, isn't that interesting if I just stood my ground in that particular situation and just went, well, look, this is my boundaries and this is what I'm willing to do and this is what I'm not willing to do. But let me just tell you what my boundaries are. And it wasn't 100% comfortable for them. They really wanted to push my limits. And I get this occasionally. People want to like just see how far they can stretch the friendship, so to speak. And I didn't stretch the friendship. I just stood in my ground and went, no, this is what will work for me. Stop trying to ask for anything more. And it's not my fault that you want that and I'm not willing to do it. Like, and in that situation, I kind of forced them to change what they were doing by me standing strong. And I thought, oh, isn't that interesting? That be the change energy is then like almost I had to reverse it. Although what I had to do was change it back from letting my boundaries be pushed and change it back to no, this is now what the boundary, this is the boundaries. I set the boundaries already. They got pushed out and I had to rebuild the boundary. So instead of being defaulting into, oh, well, all right, I'll people please then. I'll do what they want. I had to rebuild it and make sure that I stood in my power and my strength. So there was this sort of element of instead of being pushed into people pleasing, I decided to not let that happen and change it back to my boundary.
In both cases, though, you are standing up for yourself, right?
Yeah.
One is maybe a little closer to home, and one might be a little bit outside the comfort zone, but they're both putting yourself out there the way that you want to be treated and are willing to be treated.
Yeah. Yep. And it sort of came back to me and the choice that I made to change the circumstance. So when I was uncomfortable, I had to be the one to change in both circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And that then allowed things to be different and me to feel differently. And so those were the, I know I've been a bit ambiguous in that boundary one because I'm just trying to protect the people.
It's delicate
in play, but can throw my daughter under the bus all the time. Well, I'm essentially throwing me under the bus.
That's what I want to put out there. Yeah, you are definitely got some tire prints there. Yeah, for sure. It's not her. She just happened to be the innocent bystander riding along your bus.
She's great at teaching me the lessons I need to know.
I think it's actually those that are closest to us that provide most of that learning or the opportunity for that learning, because it's important to us. It means something to us. If it was Joe Schmo on the street who didn't tell you how great your room was and how amazing his birthday was, you wouldn't give to whatever,
nope.
Right? It wouldn't matter. It's because they're close. It's because we care. It's because we want some kind of validation or interaction that we're somehow not getting from ourselves, and we're asking it from others.
Yep. And we value that person that's closer to us. Yeah. And the other thing that I sort of was thinking about with that is that if we let's take it back a notch. If I didn't change, if I didn't then engage with my daughter and open up, I would have just continued to blame her. Well, she's not wanting to be close to me. She's not wanting to do this. All of that would have gone on for days, if not weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And the damage that would create for that relationship would just be like sad and disappointing, really.
And self-inflicted, because you're the one suffering in silence. Well, sorry, not silent in here, but you know what I mean.
And blaming. And I think that's and I thought, well, there's a nice little flag to keep an eye on. Finding, realizing when blame is happening actually will give an opportunity to go, well, what can I change to move away from the blame? Because if we're just constantly in the blaming others or situations, or well, I can't do this because we just stay in the blame and we won't ever be the change.
I think fortunately for you, you have somebody in your life who you can speak to that about that kind of stuff, right? Like if you didn't feel comfortable going to your husband to say, oh, she's not doing what I want, it probably would have stayed in your head even longer, right? But you did share it with him, and he was able to kind of throw it back at you. So sometimes just getting it externally out of you to hear it out loud. If he doesn't catch it, maybe you'll catch it in yourself. You know what I mean? Where it's actually verbal and you're actually hearing the words outside of your head.
Yeah, because we won't, it's all at the same volume, whether it's positive or negative when it's inside our heads.
It's all noise.
When we get to say it out loud, it does become louder.
Yes.
And we can
I think
hear
you're
it better.
able to hear it different. Like, I don't know if, and maybe you can speak to this better than I can, but when it's in your head, you understand it, but do you hear it?
Yeah, I would agree that you understand it. And I say that because the number of people that I've been able to work with, and I can identify what's going on inside their head, and they go, oh, no one's ever heard that before. But it really resonates. Like they feel like they've been heard for the first time.
Yeah. I'm just wondering the difference from a knowing standpoint when you hear it come out of your voice, out of your mouth, or you're writing it and reading it. Like, I don't know what.
It cements it. It does seem to, I think what it does for me, in that whether I write it or I verbalize it, the real thing is actually able to be is identified rather than the rubbish.
Mm.
So I can hear when I'm going to say something that's just so not true, not real. And I sort of almost, and I'll do it in the safety of my husband, I must admit. And I'll just say, but I feel like blah, blah, blah. And he'll go, really? Is that really what the thing is? No. And it becomes really obvious what's ridiculous and what might really be going on.
That's accurate. I do that with Julie quite a bit, and I'll even preface something before I say it and go, "This is going to be super judgy," and then I'll say it, and she's like, "Judgy much?" And I know it's judgy, but I feel justified in my judginess when it's something like, I don't know, when it's somebody else doing something reckless, like driving or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, but when you hear it reflected back to you, like you can engage it in a different way, I find.
Yeah.
And I can go, yeah, I can probably rationalize it in a different way now. But in my head, it's just like, that guy is insane. What is he doing? He's weaving in and out of traffic. He's going to kill someone, blah, blah, blah. But yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
it's just interesting.
So, yeah, so I was like, it comes back to that being, if we want something to change outside of ourselves, we have to be the change. And then I was like, and this is where it got a little trickier for me yesterday, because when I was thinking about, oh, what story am I going to share when I chat with Ian? I was like, wow, the be the change is such a big topic. Like it gets thrown around in a global way. If you want there to be better, if you want to affect climate change, be the change. You do your bit, and then your bit doesn't feel like it's going to make the difference. And so there's this thing around be the change can feel insurmountable.
Let me offer up my story, just because I think it might show how little you need to do for things to change.
Sure.
And maybe it's because I had no expectation that it turned out the way that it did. So I had already made plans to go home and visit with some friends on the way back from my trip. And something in me was like, well, why don't I ever call this friend from college and try to visit with him? So I reached out to him, and we set up a visit for the way down. So I had somebody visit on the way down to visit my parents, and then somebody to visit on my way back. And during
Right.
so that was basically the ball that I threw out there that was different than stuff that I would normally do. And I don't know why I decided to do it, other than, it'd be nice to get together. And oftentimes I'll feel like, oh, I don't want to bother them, or I don't want to, I don't know, inconvenience people, or whatever story is going on in my head. And he said, Dad, that'd be awesome. That'd be great. Come stop by. We'll have some snacks or whatever. Anyways, then when we were talking while I was sitting there, he asked me, do you think Chris would enjoy this? Like, do you think it'd be okay if I went over and we visited together? And I'm like, I think that'd be awesome. Just pop in. And then he gave me this whole story that he can't do a pop in. Anyway, so I floated he said, can you ask for me? So I did that. And the series of events and sequences that took place after that just snowballed into what ended up becoming a 25th college reunion of
Wow.
basically the people you would want to hang out with from your class. Not everybody, not the 100 people that graduated or whatever it was, like 6 or 8 people who were in your class, who some of them are married together from the same course and all that stuff. And it was just this really nice gathering, and a surprise gathering at that.
Yep.
And just coincidentally happens to be our 25th anniversary of us graduating. Like literally within days, it would be an
Right.
anniversary. So it was just this snowball of events that took place, and all kinds of nice other things, golf game that manifested out of nowhere, and just and
Oh,
supposed to
that'd be
be
terrible. You'd hate
supposed
to have gone and played golf.
supposed to be thunder showers all week for that same 4-hour block, and it was gorgeous. It was just a really nice surprise. And I think it was because maybe I didn't have any attachment to there being any kind of special outcome, but I threw a different thing out there that I normally wouldn't do. So I effectuated something else different that wouldn't have happened, or probably wouldn't have happened, if I didn't make that one text, really.
And that's that ripple effect in motion, isn't it? And essentially you allowed the stories in your head about whatever it was, I'm not just going to pop in, or I don't know, that they'll want to see, or whatever the stories were inside the head.
It's noisy in there. It's lots happening.
There's a lot of that going on. And put that aside and went, well, instead of making those stories true, just do something that's different. Be the change. Be something different than what your stories are telling you.
Yeah. And I think that was it, was just doing something slightly out of the ordinary for me, but not that big a stretch. So
right,
like climate change, big issue, right? Like you changing your incandescent light bulb to an LED is not a huge change, right? But it's a start.
It's a start. And then when you tell others that you've changed all your light bulbs to LED or whatever, then someone else goes, oh, actually, I'll do that in my house. And then suddenly we had this recently with our solar panels last year that we installed. Then everyone, oh, you installed solar? Oh, yeah, actually, we've been thinking about doing that. Where did you get that done through? Like, it's that kind of ripple effect that then starts to make a difference.
Yeah.
That we don't always know the ultimate differences. And so I suspect there'll be more ripple with the way that I've now interacted with my daughter in a way that I'm not ever going to know, because she might then open up to another friend who hasn't been engaging with her, or something that she'll go, oh.
I totally agree with that. And just one other small example of that. Because oftentimes you don't know the effect that you had on other people until way down the road, or maybe never at all. So in having a conversation with one of those couples that came to the party, I found out that, okay, their son is struggling. I don't know if he's on the autism spectrum or something like that. And he really struggles with learning. And apparently they've told my story about me finding out that I was dyslexic at 24, 25 years old, and like how I've kind of managed my life. So you don't know what your effect will be on others, but it's so important that you still show up and try to be that person anyways. And I just got I was lucky enough to see some of those things come through because I made one small change.
Yeah. And like you said, what's that, 25 years later? Maybe not. Maybe it was only, yeah, you said it was 25, didn't you? 25 years?
The graduation, yeah.
Yeah. That you find out that that change is actually making a difference somewhere. And it feels like, you know, you're not going to ever, yeah, you may not ever know what change you're creating. But it is going to have done, it's going to have had impact somewhere. So it's worth doing that and being the change, right? And just being, and I suppose it comes back to being true to what like looking at what your needs are or what you're doing, or being truthful in conversations and interactions with others that allows you to create that change.
And maybe the reason why I even heard that story at all was to share it here. Right. So maybe it affects somebody else in making a small switch for themselves, taking a different step, going in a different direction, being open with somebody else. Right.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. And I think we can, we all, not only can we all do it, but we've all got the responsibility to do it.
Nice.
Yeah. So there we go. That's
And maybe it'll be a different change that we'll talk about.
probably.
All right. Take care, everybody.
See you then. Bye.
All right.